Hello and welcome. We're going to be working on this fun project, drawing a pine cone on a branch. Just a sweet little card. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to Deliberately Creative. I'm Stephanie and this is a pine cone lesson. It's going to be a fun little lesson. I'm drawing on a piece of Arteza watercolor paper. This is 100% cotton, acid-free, not sponsored. Just saying. I'm doing this fun little pine cone, and the first thing that I need to do is get a branch in here so I know where this little pine cone lives. And I'm going to take my branch from this edge over here. I'm going to keep it up high so I have room for my pine cone. It's not going to be quite life size, but it's going to be pretty big. So branch going across, has a little nub at the end for the pine needles. This is like a long pine needle type pine. It is one of those ones that they would take the pine needles from and they would make baskets. A few of those in there, and back here I'm going to say there's another little nub, and then right about here is where the pine cone is going to live. All right, and then we've got our little pine needles coming off right there. So looking at this pine cone, I am seeing it, and it looks like it's rounded here at the top because of these petals that are all sticking up, and then it stays pretty fat and then tapers down, gently tapers down to the tip. It's kind of shaped like a lemon. Pinecone petals stack up, but they go on a diagonal. So first thing I wanted to do was figure out where are those petals that are at the top, and they overlap each other. See? Kind of overlap each other, and they're just like petals on a flower. The stem is actually coming down inside, and then there's petals that are going up on the other side. Now, I'm not too worried about making all of those petals work out. Not too worried. This is mostly just to give us placement so we know where our next rows go in. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm actually going to draw a little spiral going around like that. Diagonals going around. By doing those little diagonals going around, I find where these outside petals are. And where the outside petals are on this side. I'm just putting them in loosely. Look at this. I'm just starting to get them to go in the little pointy bits. See these little pointy bits? They all are going up. I'm going to say that one needs to come in front. See, sometimes you go back and you go, oh, yeah, that needs to come in front of that one. And that one is smaller. There we go. All right. You know, if you notice something, it usually means you need to fix it. Have you noticed that? If it's something that just throws itself up in your face, you usually have to fix it. And if you don't fix it when you're thinking about it, you'll get to the end and go, Oh, I was supposed to fix that. So now down here, if you went from the stem and you go all the way down, and I'm following kind of a little curve out the top, that is this little center bit right here. So I know that there's going to be some little petals sticking out around that. Giving myself these little landmarks. And all I'm going to draw right now, it's almost like drawing a pineapple, is I'm going to go around and give it some of these little pokey petals. And then I'm going to come over to the next one and go up. And some of these are actually just going to get put in with sort of blobs. I'm not sure how I want these to go exactly. So I'm looking at that, going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, not too bad. Got about the right number of petals going around. Now what I want to do is start making little points on the top and flat on the bottom. Point on the top, kind of point on the top and rounded. Point on the top and rounded. I'm just going to go through and basically draw this over and over until I have the shapes that I like. So you come along here and then you can put that this little bit right here. We're just getting it drawn in, aren't we? Just step by step. If you don't see what I'm doing very well, please let me know. If you need a little more assistance with this, or just need to take more time, just take more time. Now I'm looking at these guys going, they're wider. Look at that. They're much wider than I made them. It's really good to have a real physical reference for this. And actually those little curves are kind of curving upward, aren't they? They're either flat across or they're curving upward slightly. I'm just having fun here, guys. I hope that you are. If you are, make sure and share this video with your friends. Let them have some fun too, huh? And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, and this is a channel that you think you're going to want to come back to, go ahead and subscribe. Subscribing is always free, so I'm not going to be going and charging you anything. YouTube isn't going to charge you anything. I do have a Patreon if you want to support my channel, but I don't have memberships here on YouTube. So because I didn't want anybody to get confused thinking that they were having to pay for their subscription, because you don't. Nobody has to pay for a subscription on my YouTube channel. It looks like a mess, doesn't it? Don't worry, it's going to come out okay. But I want you to see, this is how I work it out. So it's not necessarily the fastest project in the world, but it's not the slowest either. There's way slower things. If we did this all with pen and ink and worked all of the shadows and all of that in with it too, it would take a lot longer. So there's these little pokey bits. There's these petals. I'm not drawing all of the little bits that go deep inside, because if you look at it, we don't see that, do we? We see the light color out here, the lighter pokey bit, and then it's very dark down inside. So we're not seeing a lot of that shadow in there. Although, to give the shape of the pine cone, I am going to have to leave a little bit of airspace around the edges. I don't want to paint it in just one solid dark. I'm going to put one more right there. You know. There we go. All right. Yeah, you don't want to paint this all in one solid dark. Yeah. I just smeared my sleeve across my graphite. So this is where that pencil where that kneaded eraser comes in. Now I'm going to go in and put some of the pen line in. Don't fuss too much with the pen lines. Now I'm going to just go right over most of my pencil lines. So we're going to fast forward this little bit so we can get to the painting. This pen is waterproof, so that's why I use it. It's not marketed as waterproof. It is just an office pen. It is the Uniball Signo RT1.28. So now we are going to get the background put in. I'm grabbing this is the 1-inch flat wash brush. We're going to get the whole paper wet, and I am going to just make sure I don't have any puddles. There we go. I want to keep it fairly light, slightly blue-green, I think. So a little bit of this blue and this green that was on my palette here, which is the sap green. There we go. Get some of that sap green in that. Maybe a little bit of that viridian. A little bit more of the blue. There we are. And I'm going to come in here just sort of not all the way into the pine cone, but up in around those edges, I'm going to put this color. And then I'm going to grab some of this indigo. The indigo is the Daniel Smith indigo. Just grabbing some of that. Around these edges. Sort of leaving a spotlight area here. Let that soften out just a bit. Give it a chance to soften up. Whoop, that's okay. The browns are all going to be so much darker than this green. It doesn't really matter. But I am going to just dab that out just a little bit. Indigo on there. Put a little more indigo. Darken that up just a smidge more. I can see as it's drying where it is getting softer. I'm going to just pull that all the way in. There. Just dab a little bit out in the inside here. We're letting it have texture. We're not worried about that color being there, but it's just to help me get a little bit of this glow around the edge. And then I'm just shaking this to get some of that movement going up and away. Dry it ever so slightly. I don't want to dry it completely though. So what I'm going to do is see about making like a little stump shape, kind of a round, sort of a little round shape. Let's see. Can we pull out a little bit of some irregular? I'm not trying to pull out bokeh per se, you know, those extra dots type of thing where you have the light dots, but I am just giving it some texture. And then I want to bring some of that color back in. This is that indigo again. We're just building texture. There we go. See how we've got that texture that was underneath, where you do need to be careful and don't rub your paper too hard, or you might get this like I did right here, this ring. That's where I pressed into the paper too hard, but it's not going to be a problem. It's going to look fine when we're all done. Now I am going to dry this completely. I think I want to put a little bit of some snow splatter in the very background. So I'm going to grab a bit of this Dr. P.H. Martin's bleed proof white. There we go. Just trying to get a little bit of splatter on here, and I'm not quite. Oh, there we go. I'm just too being a little aggressive with it, I guess. There we go. Now I'm getting some of that snowfall in the background. I'm wearing a black shirt and spattering white paint. And my keyboard is black, and it's not going to be black anymore. This is mostly just to get a little bit more texture into the background. Give that a quick dry. Now what we are going to do is take this number 8 round. This is the Zen Art Faux Squirrel. I am going to grab the burnt sienna. It's a lovely color. A little bit of burnt umber. Kind of darken it down just a smidge. Make it feel a little bit more pinecone-y. I'm going to use quite a bit of water on it. And this one is not our darkest color. So I'm going to go in and just get that in. And I am not going to be hyper vigilant on making sure it's exactly in all of my pen lines, because I like the look of the slightly messy, where it's, you know, that the hand of the artist was involved there. It wasn't a printing process. I did get a little bit of the bleed proof white down in here, and I'm just going to work it into my paint. This is not my darkest color. This is sort of an in-between color. I do want to try and not go into those open spaces on the edge. See how that just helps us to get that feeling of it being a pine cone. It is a pine cone. It is textured. It is... Oh, that's already looking really cool. I kind of like how it's staying a bit lighter out here, like that. Maybe the sunlight's coming from this side. This back side is going to be more shadowed in. I am going to use this same color with just a little bit more of the burnt umber and go in and get these the branch put in. And again, I don't have to stay exactly on with my pen lines. Pen lines are a suggestion. They are only a suggestion. If a pen line doesn't go exactly where you want it, or where your brush decided it wanted to go, just make it work. You can do it. That's one of the things I love about painting in general, art in general. I'm going to pull a little bit of that brown down right up here. And I'm going to put a little bit of that brown even out here on the tips. Doesn't have to go where the pen lines are. This is going to be pine needles. Pine needles have a lot of color in them. They're not just green. kind of going up on the tip and letting them pull out and sort of stop wherever they stop. I need a bit more of that umber color and maybe a touch of the indigo now. I don't have a black, so I'm going to just sort of put some of this color in. It's my darker color. It's going to be the dark that I use down inside the pine cone too. Most of this branch is going to be in shadow because I'm saying the light's coming from over here. Actually, the top edge of these branches will be lighter. So let's go in and see if we can lighten up, huh? There's a little bit of that bleed-proof white on this paper. So I can, look at that, how that just helped to lighten that up a little bit. And then we can go boom, like this. That's starting to lighten that up. Using the tip of the brush to sort of, not really scrub, but just lift out. I guess it is a little bit of a scrubbing motion, but I'm not pressing hard with this brush. I'm just letting it sort of do what it's going to do. Wipe it off. There we go. There's kind of this dark color on my palette already, so I'm going to just grab into that. Get some more of that burnt umber color, or whatever brown that is. It's actually becoming more of a burnt umber color when I add the indigo to it, isn't it? So now we're looking at this going, the deeper bits that are farther in, I'm just going to generally, roughly, paint around my little petal fronts. Look at that. I will blend some of those out that are coming towards the top where it's in the light more, or you know, just I'll work it around. But look at that. This is our darkest color. That side of the petal is going to get dark. That bit right there is going to be dark. I'm making it up as I go along. I have a pine cone. I can look at it, but the lighting in here is not the same as the lighting I'm putting on my little pine cone. The underside of these long petals actually do have like a little center vein. So putting that little center vein in, it's kind of a nice little detail. Don't have to put it in if you don't want to. If you don't see it, don't put it in. If you see it and it makes sense to you, go ahead, put it in. See, that's the thing about art, is that if it makes sense to you, it doesn't have to make sense to anybody else. I'm going to go ahead and lightly put this darker color like that. I'll take a little bit of the burnt sienna out onto those out onto those little tips. Now I'm taking some of that darker color up underneath on the little petals too. Just a bit. We're just getting texture. We're getting highlights and shadows. We're getting look at that. Look at that. We are getting a pine cone. And it's not taking that long to do. It takes me longer because I'm talking. When I just am painting, it doesn't take that long to do these things. But because I am talking as I do it, I'm going to grab some of the burnt sienna and maybe a little bit of this yellow ochre. Sort of brighten that up. Drop some of that in. I may end up having to use a little bit of the bleed proof white to tone some of this. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I may have gone a little bit dark up on those points. But you know what? I'm really quite pleased. Lighten some of that up. Move it around. There we go. This is where I do like having the option of using gouache, you know. And since it's my painting, I can use gouache if I want to. I can use the bleed proof white if I want to. I can just enjoy if I want to. All right, so we need a little bit of that darker color back in there. Just get that deepest dark. Back inside. See how that just makes these little petals pop forward. Watercolor, you work lighter to darker. I am not a traditional watercolorist though, and sometimes I do things in odd orders. Sometimes it even works out for me. And sometimes it bites me. So, you know, that's all part of experimenting, exploring, experiencing, the whole gamut. All of it, everything. That is part of the whole process. I like that. And now I'm actually going to leave this alone for just a few minutes. Not too worried about making, like I said, not worried about making it perfect. Just enjoying the process. Going a little bit darker right down in there, right here, a little bit darker, where those petals sort of overlap. That petal is in behind. That petal is behind this one. I could see where this is going to be one of those ones where you walk away from it and come back and go, oh my gosh, cool things happened when I walked away. But look, we have a pine cone. We have a pine cone. Get a little bit of that. A little bit of color up underneath that point. so happy with that. All right, I need to mix up my green. So it's going to be sap green, a little bit of yellow ochre, yep, I'm getting my yellow ochre all dirty, sap green. I'm going to get that color in there first, and way out here on the tip of my brush. You don't want to squish your tip down. You want it to just flick over nice and gently. Ooh. And if you get some of those little flicks that go into odd, weird places, woohoo! All right, I want some darker green. I'm mixing it into that earthier green look. So, because I need some darker green in here. Let some of those come out. Do their little thing. More in my brush. See, we're doing texture. We're getting texture in here. We're not painting every little pine needle. Needs to be darker. Darker green. So I picked up some ultramarine blue and some of that sap green and mixing it into this mix. See how we're getting depth, and it's giving us shadow, it's giving us highlights. Let that one flay out just a little bit. Maybe give us a couple like that over here. I like how this bleed proof white is coming through to the front of those pine needles where we haven't scrubbed them, and I'm not going to scrub on them. So we're going to grab a little bit of this bleed proof white. I'm going to put some snow on the top edge of my branches. So now what I'm going to do is grab and just put a little bit of this as snow building up on the top of the branch. Maybe dripping down just a little here and there. And then I think there's going to be a little bit of some snow collecting on this top edge. Look at that. By having that dark down on this pine cone, it's giving us the opportunity to put some of that snow, just catching on some of the edges, more so on this light side. A little bit of it's catching on the top edges. Because of the angle that it's growing at or hanging on at. Oh, I'm happy. Oh, this is making me really happy. You know, don't stop until you're happy with it. Enjoy the process. Don't give yourself any of that back talk. Do it until it's done. There we go. I am going to put a little bit more fresh snow, because that's what fresh snow looks like. Boom. Oh, I hope that you had fun on this little journey making a pine cone. I am going to sign this really quick. I think with the pine branch green. And I'm just going to go ahead and do it right down here. There we go. Now we're going to pull that tape off and see what we have. And see if we like what we got. Oh, I already know that I'm loving this. All right, friends, look at that. We have a beautiful card ready to send to someone. Lovely snowy winter card. I am really tickled with how that turned out. I hope you are too. If you enjoyed this, please make sure and click that like button. Subscribe to the channel and help me get to my 100,000 for Christmas. That would really be a bonus. Let's see if we can make that happen. Remember to go out and do something creative. Take care of yourself so you can take care of those around you. I want to see you back here again really soon. Bye-bye.